Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com.
Hey, Post-Edit Angel here. I just wanted to give a quick shout to our sponsor for this video, the Zervis Channel. I just recently started doing some content over there. If you're not familiar with the Zervis Co. and everything that kind of encompasses, it's just pretty much everything that we believe in at Voices, from promoting indie authors to indie projects. Zervis is a kind of full stop for anything in the indie community and the horror community, lifting up other creators, wanting to create, just a really tight-knit group of people that are all about supporting each other. Highly recommend checking out Zervis on all the socials and YouTube as well. I will have the links in this episode, and here is the rest of the video. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to an episode of Indie Horror Filmmaking Interviews. Today, as always, over the moon to be talking anything related to found footage. I am joined by Jack Dignan, who is the creator for the found footage movie Puzzle Box. Thank you for joining me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you as well.
Yeah, of course. I mentioned this just a second ago before we hit recording. I was already excited to talk about it, but I really think that this is going to be a film that a lot of people are really going to like. It's going to check a lot of boxes. So I always love discovering new found footage filmmakers, and getting a chance to talk to them is always super special. So
yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no, of course. My co-host was originally going to join, but he has an infant at home, and it was just not in the cards for tonight, which is okay. But I was telling him, we talked about it briefly as well. So I've been hyping it up with my friends in the film.
Well, good. Well, I hope he likes it as well.
Yeah. I just kind of wanted to take an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better before we kind of dive into some stuff I want to talk about with the film, and just kind of giving an introduction as to who you are and what your history with filmmaking is.
Yeah, sure. So I am Australian, so it is probably the opposite time of day for me as it is for you right now.
Yes.
All my films are Australian movies, and I started out in making a bunch of little short films here in Australia, and making there's this big festival called Trot Fest that was over here. It's unfortunately shut down now, but they had like a junior component of it, and that really helped me sort of get my ground on the feet. That's the right ground on the feet on the ground. Other way around.
Feet on the ground. I know what you meant. It sounded right anyway.
Feet on the ground for just practicing the craft and practicing filmmaking, and I got to meet so many wonderful people and make so many really exciting short films and genre films, and a bit of sci-fi, a bit of fun stuff like that. And from there, just sort of kept building up my skills, and eventually I started working in film. I turned it into a career, not as directing at that stage, but in visual effects and on-set visual effects and coordinating and things like that. And you think you know how a movie set runs, and then you step foot on the set of a $100 million movie, and you're like, oh no, like that's how a film set runs. So my first day on a real set was real eye-opening. But I spent a lot of years, and I'm still doing it currently as well in between directing gigs, and I spent a lot of time really just sort of working with really great filmmakers like that, and getting to meet, Oscar winners, and being in offices with them and talking to them every day, and just sort of soaking in as much as I can about just how films are made and how the sets work and the politics of it and how studios work and things like that, which I think has been invaluable. I mean, I've taken so many lessons on board from that, and at the same time, I always just wanted to keep directing and keep writing and keep myself focused on my own craft at the same time, and stepping away from this visual effects world every now and again, just so that I can sit down and really be with myself and be with my own movies for a while. And from there, I sort of stemmed out into directing my own features, and in between jobs, I would direct features. And so I had one film after she died. It came out a couple of years ago, and I think I finished on Thor 4, and then I think 5 days, like we finished shooting, and then 5 days later I was shooting After She Died, my first movie. So it's been back to back like that for quite a while.
Busy.
Yeah, very busy.
Yeah.
But no, I love it. It's the world I love to be in, what I love to be a part of.
Yeah. And then when you're talking about like the shorts and stuff that you've done, and then the other, so this is your second feature?
That's correct. Yes, second feature.
The other one found footage as well, or is it third person?
No. The my first film after she died is shot in a more traditional style.
Okay.
We
I'm just
shot that
curious.
in 2021,
Oh, okay.
and came out in 2022. It was all self-raised. It was all a bunch of people I'd
Oh,
worked with
yeah.
before. It was a bunch of people that I had been introduced to through friends. So it was very much like in the friends and family circle of that film. And we managed to raise quite a bit of money for it, which was amazing and exciting. And we just wanted to make it. We just wanted to get out there and make it. And similar, I guess, to my first day on the set of $100 million movie. I came into that and I was like, I know how films are run. I've just worked for Marvel for a year. Like I've got this. I'm really cocky about it. And then I get into the first day of directing after she died, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually how you run a feature film. And now, maybe I was too confident going into this, but I found my footing once again pretty quickly on that one. But no, it was
Yeah.
great. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. So Puzzle Box is available now. Where can people find it?
Yes, Puzzle Box is available at home for anybody who wants to watch it. We're currently in North America, your Apple TVs, your
Okay,
Fandangos,
gotcha.
things like that. And
Okay.
we're branching out into international territories at the moment. I
Ooh,
don't know if
fun.
I'm live yet in the UK. I'll have to check that. Maybe by the time you're watching this interview, it will be out in the UK as well.
Yeah.
And we're expanding out from there over the next coming weeks.
Very cool. Do we want to talk about kind of a brief synopsis of the film and then maybe some just inspirations of where the idea came from and why you decided to do POV horror?
Yeah, for sure. So the film is about these two sisters, and they sort of flee to this house in the woods, this remote house that they've been given to stay in for a couple of weeks. And one of them is a recovering drug addict, and so her sister is there to document the process of recovery and present it to the doctors in the rehab center and be like, she is getting better. I can prove it to you because something has
Right.
happened to her in the past that requires her to prove this. You'll find out when you watch the movie.
Yeah.
So they go there. She's not in good shape at all. And when they get there, things start to get a bit weird. And they think it's sort of a traditional house, but there's nobody else really around. The owners are missing. The woods
Yeah.
surround them, and
Yeah.
the layout of the house begins to change. And so they
Yeah.
quickly find themselves stuck in this sort of inescapable labyrinth of a house, a puzzle box, if you will. And they need to find their way out. I guess we'll
Yeah.
leave it at that, and you can watch the movie to find out what other
Yeah.
horrors might await them as they crawl towards the exit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think that I went into it completely blind. I didn't know anything about it. I just put on the screener and I just watched it kind of as is. It was funny because going into it, I didn't realize that it was a found footage style film. And I am a massive found footage junkie. Like that, I have an entire series on the channel where we just focus on found footage.
that's fun.
It's just my favorite subgenre of horror. So it was so funny going in because I was like immediately pumped because I had no idea going into it was going to
Oh,
be
good.
shot like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love found footage as well. I share your same love. And I think the found footage boom, I guess, really happened at a good age for me. When all the paranormal
Oh,
activities
sure.
and those sort of started. I mean, found footage has been around for a little bit at that point, but that's when I felt like it really started kicking off. And
No, for
I
sure.
was, I was really getting into horror at that stage. I was
Yeah.
around 10, 11, and I started watching those movies, and
Mhm.
I just became obsessed with it. And I thought it was great for so many reasons. I think one, a lot of those are really good gateway horrors as well. I think, if at that age when I was 10, 11, they're not like, a lot of them anyways, are not like super extreme that you can't watch them at that age, but they're
Sure.
also like very scary and very engaging and
Mhm.
very creative. And so it opened me up to so many other horror movies. But
Yeah.
I just loved the style of it, and I loved the creativity of it, and I loved the sort of the unique way that all those films would tell their stories. They'd never tell them in sort of traditional routes. They had to keep it as grounded and as realistic as possible, but at the same time, they would sort of stem off into all of these insane places that you just would never think it would go to. And I was sad a bit when I guess it died out. I guess Hollywood sort of shot themselves in the foot a bit with found footage for a while there. They sort of relied on it a little bit too much, but there was some great stuff in there. I think a lot of films, especially now, people look back on very, very fondly. And
Oh, for
it's
sure.
always something I wanted to sort of explore a bit. And I had done, when I was at that same age, 10, 11, I'd made a couple of little not good or scary in any way, shape, or form, but my attempts at like a little found footage horror shorts and stuff like that, which hopefully never come out. And so it's always been in the back of my mind, like, oh yeah, that was always like a fun sort of creative venture. Maybe one day it'll come back and one day I'll be able to do it. But it was never sort of at the forefront of my plans or how I sort of envisioned my career moving forward. But
Sure.
when the opportunity came up, once I had the idea, something sort of sparked inside me, and I was like, okay, I think I could do this. I think I've got sort of a concept for this found footage film that I think we can explore. And it was sort of happening around the same time that the VHS movies started back up again. They're sort of like their recent run on Shudder.
Oh, sure.
And so it was found footage was like slowly creeping its way back into it. We shot the film about a year and a half ago now. I was just excited to sort of ride that wave and sort of join in on the fun and have my crack at a found footage story.
Yeah, and I have to say, and I know people may feel like I'm blowing smoke simply because we're sort of face to face, but I will say, for it to be your first venture into that for a feature length, I think you nailed the feel and sort of what I would consider like the spirit of found footage, because I think like I've been watching, so I just did 31 days of this stuff. You think I would be like completely sick of it. And sometimes I am, because sometimes, there's some really great stuff. There's the kind of middle ground, and then there's the stuff that's not super entertaining at all. And so, but I think it was, I would say, the typical found footage formula from what I'm used to is, the first hour is like nothing happens, right? And then the last is just like crazy. Whereas that's not really the approach that you took. I mean, there's something happening keeping you engaged, at least me as a viewer, I felt consistently. And I think given, the themes of what's going on in the story, I think it works really well as a POV horror.
Oh, good. No, thank you. I'm glad you feel that way, because that was our intention. That's what we wanted the entire time. I think we how do I was without spoiling the ending, but we wanted to dive into this idea of these characters in her own sort of personal loop of horrors, and she's incapable of escaping herself, and she's incapable of escaping the things that she's brought upon in her own life and the things that have been forced upon her in her life. And so we always wanted that to be at the forefront of the story. And if you're going to go down that path, I mean, you've got to introduce the horrors pretty early, and we've got to creep the terrors in from the start. Not too hopefully in your face from the beginning, but definitely.
No, I wouldn't say no. But enough to keep you intrigued, and enough for you to feel, at least what I felt as an audience was, you need to pay attention. Because the first, like, even from the first like 5, well, maybe like 10 minutes, maybe the first 10 minutes, there's already things happening that are making you go, wait, okay, hold on. Which is good.
And things that we keep circling back to time and time again as the film progresses as well, all the way through to the ending, where you'll see it when you watch the movie.
No, for sure.
But no, we were very aware as well of other found footage movies and what the genre had been doing over the last sort of like 10, 15 years. And I made a lot of our casting crew, thankfully, as small as they were, but a lot of them had seen a lot of found footage movies already. But there was a list of films that I was like, okay, these are the ones we've got to focus on. These are the ones I really want to take as our like major inspiration. But then from there, that opened up conversations about, all right, what has this genre done already? What haven't we seen? Do we like? What do we maybe think has been a bit overdone? And what can we bring into our own movie? And so we were very aware of the tropes, and we were very aware of the style. We wanted to sort of, I don't know, pay respects to the genre in the best way, shape, and form that we could, and hopefully come across when you watch the movie.
Yeah, I think all of that comes through very well. I feel like when you watch a found footage movie where someone has made the film, whether it's from a writer-director perspective or even from, the people within the film, the actors and the actresses, I feel like if you watch enough of it, you can tell the people that genuinely have like a love for the subgenre. I think it comes through. And I think there's a couple of things, and obviously I won't say what they are, but there's a couple things that come up in conversation that are very clear what you're addressing, I think, as far as the found footage side of it and the way that the story's being told. So I know, I think you nailed that. I think you did a great job.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, it was very important to us as well that we, we justified why it was found footage in the movie. I think I know a lot of fans have a sort of criticism of
Oh,
why are they still filming in this
yes.
situation? And
Yes.
I guess I can't say for sure if we pulled it off, but I'd like to think that
I
we
think
gave
so.
it our best
Yeah.
crack, and we needed to stem this whole story around the idea of they need to film, they need to keep filming, they have to keep filming.
Yeah.
If they don't keep filming, what's the point?
Yeah.
And so that was always at the forefront of our mind throughout this entire movie.
No, I think it's yeah, that's definitely like found footage fans, like things that they are very sticklers, like big sticklers about is, well, why are they still filming and why is the camera still being held? And I think that storytelling is a great way to explain that. Some people do it through like the types of devices that they use or they're filming with, but I think story wise, because you do make a point of even having dialogue about it, I think it works very well, because as a viewer, I never felt like it didn't make sense. And I
Yeah.
have in plenty of movies, I've been like, okay, at this point, I would have been out like a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Camera down, just like, no, thank you.
I don't care what we capture. I don't care while we're here. I'm
Yeah.
done,
Exactly. But I think found footage as well, when you're shooting found footage, there's a lot of sort of creative avenues you can take. And one of the things that really excited me was the night vision aspect of it. I think
Sure.
that was at the forefront. I was like, okay, when I was pitching the film to like my producer Morgan and things like that, and some financiers that whatever. And I was like, all right, one of the aspects that I really want to explore is night vision. I want a good chunk of this movie to be shot in night vision, POV, pitch black darkness, and that was a lot easier said than done. It turns out when you're shooting completely 360 POV in a pitch black dark house in the middle of the night, it's very easy to trip over things, and it's very easy to bump up on the stairs. And I think our poor lead actor, Caitlin, she had many bruises on her legs from tripping over many stairs. There's a sequence towards the middle of the film, I guess, where she's sort of running up and down some stairs a lot.
I don't know how.
She nailed it. She got there.
Yeah.
Not the first couple times. There were a few stumbles. A few curse words were thrown, but she got there, and she was great at it. She was a natural, and so was Lanika. She didn't get to film any night vision, but they had a little competition going to see who could shoot the better shots, and who would impress me more as a camera operator, because they were filming the bulk of the film.
They were doing it, yeah.
I'm not going to say who wins on this podcast.
I was waiting for the suspense. I was like, well,
no, I could never reveal that. Maybe I'll tell them in person next time I see them.
That's
but I'll tell you after. It's all right.
Okay. Once the recording light has gone away.
Yeah, exactly. One of them had a little cheat. It turns out because Lanika shot her stuff first, and then we switched over to Caitlin, and she shot her stuff afterwards. And Caitlin discovered the very handy autofocus feature that Lanika wasn't aware of, which didn't always work. Some scenes you couldn't use autofocus, but a lot of her like running through the house in the woods on her own, that came quite handy for her. So I'll just say that. That's all I'll say. I'm not going to announce a winner.
Yeah, no, and I think one of the other things, obviously being found footage, I loved horror, obviously is a big passion of mine as well. But the other thing that I felt like really connected with me was the storyline between these two sisters. So the themes being the addiction, there's some other themes going on. I don't know that they're super spoilery, but I'll avoid them just in case. But there was a couple of things that I noticed thematically that were really just, I think, what made me care so much about them, because it was just this instant I cared for. I don't know how to explain it other than just connecting with the characters, which of course keeps you engaged as a viewer throughout the film when you care about what's going to happen. And I was kind of just wanted to talk about, why this story, why the themes in this, and, just all of the things that it encompasses. Because I think what I always tell people about found footage is the things that click for me the most is it can be not super scary. It can be not very gory. It can be, sort of anticlimactic. But if the story is good enough, if the story can make me care for an hour, hour and a half, however long it is, that's what I'm looking for, because that's what I need to care about the film. And I think these themes are very easy to resonate with. I think they're going to resonate with a lot of people. So I just kind of wanted to talk about deciding to do these themes and kind of where that came from.
Yeah. There's a lot that I could answer with this question. But no, I think those were things that we were, especially when I was writing the screenplay and I was having initial chats with the actors, it was something
Yeah.
that was always at the forefront of discussion. And it was always, okay, yes, we are doing a found footage movie and it's very cheap, which so many found footage movies are, and we're fully aware of our budgetary limitations, but we don't want it to ever feel that way. We don't want it to ever feel like, oh, this is just some like cheap generic horror movie that we've just sort of slapped together because we wanted to make a horror movie.
Sure.
We all really cared about making this the best it possibly could, and I wanted this film to have strong characters and to have strong themes. And I wanted it to not only scare the hell out of people, and hopefully we did, but I wanted it to sort of really resonate with people. And it's a tricky line to walk when you're telling a scary story. You're like, all right, do I want to lean more into the horror here? Do I want to lean more into the emotion here? Do I want to
I get that.
sort of have a little thematic beat here? And a lot of that came in editing. We sort of ended up shooting all three, and then we would sort of find the balance in editing when I was sitting in the editing room. Yeah, the core of the story, I guess, began with these two sisters, and I had this idea of sort of, to my point earlier, of this sort of inescapable loop of terror that she finds herself in her life, and this idea of recovery and getting better, and can you get better, and is there a better version of yourself out there, and is there a way to get over what you've done to yourself? Can you forgive yourself? And so lots of other questions that maybe dive more into spoilers, but that was sort of the initial idea. And the recovery concept came into it pretty early on. And once I had that idea down pat, it was like, all right, now I've just opened up a whole new world of possibilities with telling this story. And it changed the ending. I mean, it was very early on that I came up with the idea, but our initial concept, our initial pitch, was pretty much just a woman stuck in a house and she couldn't get out. That was the initial concept.
Sure.
And it had quite a dark ending originally. And then once we introduced this idea of recovery, and I really found the theme of the story and what message I wanted to give off, it was like, okay, how dark is too dark for a story like this? If you're trying to get the audience to attach themselves to these characters, horror is famously a dark genre, and a lot of those films have very dark endings. And our film isn't necessarily the most happy of endings, but at the same time, it's like, okay, how can we end this story in a way that leaves the audience with the message that I want to leave, especially around recovery, which is such a sensitive topic. Addiction and recovery. And so it took a lot of finessing and a lot of conversations, a lot of people and a lot of actors, and doing what felt right for these characters and what felt right for the audience. I didn't want it to be a cheat. I didn't want them to feel cheated by the ending or by how this journey goes. And I sort of rambled a bit there, but
no, I'm with you. I think to your point, especially because horror is a lot like comedy. It's all about timing. So I think when you talk about making something a horror film, but it has deeper, darker themes, it has a message, it has a point, it has these things that are not just jump scares or not just this copy and paste ghost story. I think that it can be a really difficult line because, to your point, I think that the subject matter is very sensitive, especially for viewers who have either been through this or who love people that are going through or have been through this. But I think it felt more like, a respectful approach to the conversation of the other side of it, because I feel like you have in the real world, you have people that are not empathetic to people who are in recovery or who've been through addiction or any of those things. They're not empathetic. It's just this immediate, they just tend to put them in a trash bin. Right. And so it's very refreshing, I think, to see it approached in a way where you're given a character that as a viewer, you do care for and you do want what's best. And you're really rooting, I think, for her ultimately, and not just for her sister's sake or not just for the sake of the whole story of like why they're doing what they're doing, but just for her own benefit, because you want to see that success story in her. And I think that it kind of gives way to this conversation of, people who are in recovery, people who've been through addiction are human beings too, and they deserve empathy and compassion and love. And I think that while the ending may not be, super, super dark, it definitely left an emotional, lasting impression on me, because I have some of these things, not to get too personal, but I have some of these things in my family. And so I've seen this stuff firsthand and how hard it is and how rough it can be. And it's just anyway, that was a long way to get to what my point was. But my point was is that I think that it's handled very respectfully in a way that I'm hoping will lead viewers to empathy, because I think that's what I felt. And I think more people going through this in a real life circumstance, I think they need that. So that was kind of how I felt about it overall thematically in the film.
No, that's great. That's really great to hear. And that again has been our sort of our hope for this movie. It's been my intention. It's been what I've hoped people get away from this film, and what people take away from this film when they
Sure.
finish watching it is, you know, a film like this needs a little bit of hope. You know, I think it needs a little bit of reassurance that things can get better. And, you know, these people in this film, they've gone through hell and they've gone through such a dark time, and they don't see a way out for themselves. And, you know, even the character of Olivia, which is the sister character in the film, who's taking Kate through this journey and helping her get better. You know, she also comes to a point where she's like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I think, you know, that's also something that I don't think is talked about a lot either. And I think that's something that I wanted to pay respects to, as well as the whole addiction and the recovery aspect of it. And I wanted to sort of be respectful to both sides and make audiences really understand Kate and understand Olivia at the same time, and have a conversation between those two themes and those two ideas. And you know, one of my favorite scenes to film was this big long dialogue scene they have pretty early on, where they're just butting heads and they're sort of getting it all out into the world. And that was quite an emotional scene to film, just because of the heavy nature of it. And
I bet.
Lanika Den, who plays Olivia, she was the one that was filming that scene, and you don't see her face once that entire scene. She's entirely off camera, but she was crying filming that, and she was doing that, I guess, because it was part of the performance, but she was also doing that for Caitlin, for who plays Kate. And so she's a incredible scene partner in that way. And you know, the two actors, I think we ended up doing like 5 or 6 takes of that whole scene all up. We did the whole thing in one shot, because they just brought something new to the table each time. And we really, you know, each day we would get the scene and we would sort of rework little bits of dialogue and be like, all right, how can we sort of harken into these themes a little bit more? How can we dive deeper? What else can we bring to the conversation? What can we bring to the table? You know, what from our own lives and our own experiences, and, you know, people we've seen that have gone through it, and people that we've talked to that have gone through it, and this, you know, what would we like to see brought into this film? And so it was a very collaborative process in that way, and we were really able to sort of elevate what was already working quite well on the page and into something that I think was a lot more resonant for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I to kind of piggyback off what you're talking about with them working together in that scene in particular, I think the other thing that makes this, you know, story as strong as it is because I felt like the relationship between them as siblings felt realistic. It didn't feel like, I feel like sometimes when you watch stuff with this type of content, it's like the siblings are just like cruel, like they are cruel, like from the beginning, like just really cruel out the gate, or they're just too like, I don't know, they just feel fake. They don't feel very genuine. And so I would say that that those types of moments that you witnessed while it was being filmed, I think come through because I definitely believed this relationship. I definitely did not hate Olivia, which I feel like I always end up hating the siblings of those characters, because I'm always like, you're just being mean. Like, you don't, like, you're not even acting like you care about this person. And I think that you are able to still kind of understand where she is with it, but still at least knowing that she really does care about this other human being that's her sister, and she really does want, you know, for her to be better, and this is her, maybe possibly her last chance to help her in that way. And I think all of that balance of their chemistry and how they engage with each other as they're going, especially because you don't see them together, you know, at the same time very often at all. Do you see them at all together? I'm trying to think in my head the scenes, but
not
mostly
on camera. No. Yes, we do.
It's all from one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a deliberate choice to have that switch as well, and to have different people holding the cameras in different scenes, because I wanted to. I feel like, again, sort of in something I guess was maybe overplayed a bit in some other found footage movies, with that you never really see who the person filming is. You never really get to know them. They sort of become a surrogate for the audience, and it was.
That's true.
I never wanted to do that. I never wanted the person off camera to just be an audience surrogate. I wanted people to buy into this relationship, this core relationship, because without it, the whole story falls flat. And so we needed to have that sort of shifting perspective throughout, you know, where you get introduced to Kate from the perspective of Olivia, and then you switch and you see it from Kate's perspective. And so again, you sort of get both sides of the coin there.
I think, yeah. And I think doing it that way makes perfect sense given what you're trying to accomplish on the story side of it too. And I imagine like you've already touched on this briefly. We were talking about having to do the stairs in the dark, filming and night vision and all these things. But without going, obviously we don't want to give very much away at all. So whatever you're able to say, I wanted to kind of talk about what it was like filming. Like, I don't know if the edits are just really smooth or what, but the moments where things shift and like what that was even like to film, because it's so seamless. Like it's almost like an optical illusion. Like, and I just kind of want to talk about like if you had like a specific, I don't know, mindset or technique when you went into it, or just kind of what that was like to film.
I'd love to claim that we had like a really cool set that got to move around and things, but the reality is it's a lot of very clever editing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, yeah.
Editing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was the editor on the film, so I was editing as we went as well. So I always had an idea of. I mean, it was a very rough edit. The first cut of the film came in at 2 hours and 10 minutes, and the final film is 72 minutes. So we trimmed the fat quite a bit, but
wow. Yeah.
we would shoot. The film was pretty much, except with the exception of 1.5 days, it was all night shoots. And so I would shoot at nighttime with a crew of 5 people and a cast of 3, and then during the daytime, I'd sleep in. But then I would edit for a couple of hours before we started the nighttime shooting. And so I'd always go into the next day with an idea of like, okay, what's working? What have we got? How can we fix this? Okay. And how can we make it better? And so we always knew what we needed to get, what wasn't working. And on the weekends, I would come in and I would film some little connective tissue pieces running through the stairs of little beats that we didn't get, but to put all the little pieces together. But predominantly, it was our actors that were filming it, and a lot of night vision allows you to get away with quite a bit. There's a lot of darkness in that frame. A lot of whip pans, but there is some visual effects trickery in there as well that we stitched a few shots together. But it was a lot of planning, really. I didn't have access to the house until we visited and we had some photos and things like that, but we didn't have like a actual like time to sit within the house until just a couple of days before shooting. And at that point, I had the script in my hand and I had my iPad, and I would just be walking from room to room. I would map the whole thing out, and I'd be like, all right, we've got to go from this room will lead to this room will lead to this room will lead to this room. When the switches happen, this room then leads to this room, and it sort of becomes, I had to track the whole maze and everything from there. And then we shot the film in chronological order, which is unusual, but a single location, so we wanted to be on this emotional journey with these characters from start to finish. But it also helped a lot with tracking these puzzle box sequences and being able to follow, like, okay, we just came from this room, now we're going to go to this room, which is great, except for the fact that we had to make sure that every room in the house is available at all times, and we were living in the house, so we were staying in the house at the same time. So it'd be like, all right, now we're going into bedroom number 2. Who's living in bedroom number 2? Get all your stuff out right now. So we had to have like safe areas where we could hide from things. So I think there's like maybe one room we didn't actually end up filming in. That's just for all the nighttime stuff, would just be full of people's belongings and suitcases and things like that. But it came together. Surprise! We did a bunch of camera tests in pre, just in my apartment. I would just run from room to room with the camera, and I just sort of test it out, and we knew from that point that it was going to work. My test that I did, I showed the cast and I showed the crew, and I was like, this is how I've been editing it. This is how I've been shooting it. It needs some tweaking. We need to match lighting in between rooms, which again is much easier to do when it's pitch black darkness.
Sure.
But this is kind of working, and we took that technique and rolled with it for the whole movie.
Yeah, because I think that though, I don't know why. I guess because when you're talking about filming, this specific style with found footage and POV is like, it's so much crazier to see that kind of stuff because you're in that perspective, right? So even you as the viewer, you're like, hold on, like when it starts really going, you never know what you are part of the story almost. You're like the character that you're following along with because you don't know what's on the other side of that door any more than they do. And so it's this very weird sense of like, insecurity in your safety, and like you don't know, and it's very disorienting, but in a very entertaining way. And there's
Yeah.
something specific, I think, about filming in this specific style that makes that sort of technique even more like insane, because I just some of those sequences are some of my favorites, because I just couldn't believe how well choreographed they were. And I was like, that was like on the top of my list of things I wanted to talk about, because I was like, I want to know how this, like, how because it just looks, like I said, so seamless. You almost wouldn't guess, I feel, that it was edited in that way specifically, because it just matches and matches and matches, and it's just like it just works.
Yeah, we were very careful when we were shooting it to make sure that it matched, and we would watch takes back even before we got to put in the edits to be like, all right, if I've lined it up to this door and then we're going to do a match cut, or we're going to move on the wipe, is it going to be the same framing or is it going to be off? And then there are a couple of little small beats we had to cut because it didn't quite match in the edit, and I was like, oh, you can tell that we've faked that a bit. You can tell that that's not really the same room. Some of it is unedited. There are a few long takes that we just genuinely have running from room to room, and you can't really tell but we haven't cut. At one point in the first cut, the 130-minute cut that no one should ever watch, I barely was able to sit through it. I was like, this is such a boring film at this point. But at that point, it was 3 shots, but it cut so seamlessly. It felt like a single 30-minute take. Which was I was quite impressed with it, actually. I was like, oh wow, this looks really cool. Obviously didn't make the movie. We cut out the whole, like, the middle 15 minutes of it, and the first 2 sections were a bit jump cutty. But it sort of, found footage allows you to get away with a lot with very little. Which was part of the reason we wanted to make this a found footage movie, is because we wanted to test out this style and test out this concept of this puzzle box house and this inescapable labyrinth of a house. And at the same time, I wanted to sort of I was very inspired, I guess, by this. One of the inspirations we had for the film that I sort of talked to the cast and crew about was the video game Outlast, which is like shot in a found footage style. And that game terrifies me.
Very scary.
Very scary game. I love it.
Very scary.
And one of the things that I always found a relief when I was playing that game was like, all right, this person's chasing you down a hallway, but you can quickly close the door or close a cupboard, and you can hide in here for a second and they'll keep running. But I wanted to sort of subvert that a bit and be like, all right, what if I violate your safety here? You know, what if you run and you escape and you close that door, but then you turn around and suddenly you're face to face with this person again.
All over again.
Yeah. So I never wanted to feel like there was ever any safety within this story and within this sort of nightmare little house that they find themselves in.
Yeah, because I think once those types of things start to happen, it feels like it's really nonstop. There's just this constant dread and anxiety. They're actually going to make Outlast a movie.
I heard.
And when I tell you, I will riot in the streets if it's not found footage. I'm going to be so upset, because that's like, if they do that story, some of those sequences, they do it found footage. I mean, that's going to do it more justice than traditional filmmaking, I feel like. But
no, I'm excited to see what they do with that movie. I think I've always felt that that's a really good story to tell cinematically. I feel like there's a lot of potential there, and hopefully they do the second one as well. I like the second game a lot as well. I thought that was really strong.
Yeah, it was a really good sequel. I think that there's a couple of game mechanics I had some little qualms about, but otherwise, yeah, that one was really good too, considering I was wondering what else they were even going to be able to do. Because I didn't know at the time when they announced it how it would or wouldn't relate to the first, and what were they going to do. Because if we go back, I feel like it's going to be redundant, but no, they did a really good job making a strong sequel to a very, very unsettling game on multiple levels.
They found many new ways to make it scary, and hopefully I've taken a lot of inspiration from that in Puzzle Box, and if we're fortunate enough to do a second one, then I've got some ideas, and some more Outlast influences, I guess, will bleed into that as well. But hopefully one day we can get that underway.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. We talked a little bit already about kind of what you want people to get from this. So I just kind of wanted to pivot back to that and just see if there was anything you wanted to add about kind of what you hope viewers take away from this film when they watch it.
Yeah, it's been interesting talking to people who've seen it, because I feel like people take away very different things from the ending depending on who you talk to. And I had a friend recently that messaged me, and she was just like, you have to tell me what the ending means. I don't understand. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I could tell you if you want. was like, I didn't think it was that ambiguous, but I'll explain it if you need me to. No, I think people take away that there's always a chance for everyone to get better. I think there's always a way to break your own loop. There's always a way to sort of free yourself, not from your own trauma, but from other people's trauma as well. And I think, even if you can't see that in your immediate future and it's not happening to you right now, I don't think that hope is completely lost. And it's the film's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows. It's quite dark and quite scary, and it's not a happy film by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't know. I'd like to infuse it with a little bit of hope that I hope people sort of take away and start having a conversation about and talking about the future and how they can help.
Yeah, I rewatched the last like maybe 10, 15 minutes multiple times.
Oh, good.
Because I was sitting with, first of all, I think it typically, not always, but it typically can be a really great thing when you watch something and you're like, I really have to think about this. Like and you just keep thinking about it. And so the ending was something that was very thought provoking, but I didn't know what thoughts I was supposed to be thinking until I had time to really think about it. And then, like I said, I rewatched them. And if maybe we talked about it on the first watch and I didn't get a chance to revisit or think about it, I don't know. It was way more beneficial for me to really think about it and go back and think about the sequences and revisit them, because I think that there is a lot going on, emotionally. I think there's a lot going on with the themes and the storyline and the characters, and obviously the chaos that is the situation that they're in. But I think that it was definitely something that I kept thinking about, because I wanted to see where I didn't like not knowing where I was supposed to feel, but in a way it just made me appreciate it, I think, that much more when I finally processed and realized how I wanted to feel about it. Because I do really, really love this ending, because I think, to your point, it's not it's very dark, and it gets kind of down to, there's some not so great highs in this. There's a lot of lows as well, but I think that there is some hope in that. And I don't know that that's something I would have suspected, one, from a found footage movie, but two, from something that is rooted in such deep conversation about pretty sensitive subject matters. So I will be honest with you, I had to revisit it and I had to sit and think about it, because it had me a little bamboozled, but in a way that I was like, I cared enough that I needed to know how it made me feel. So I just revisited it until I sorted it all out.
Yeah. Well, that's a great selling point for people to buy it and not rent it, right? I mean, if you buy it, you can watch the ending as many times as you want.
That's
if you rent it, it's gone forever. So, put the extra $5 in and buy a copy of Puzzle Box and on VOD tonight. It's available now.
Do it. Yeah. I think I really do think I feel like I've built up a bit of a found footage community, especially like on Twitter, because that's where I'm primarily the most active, well, at least for right now. And so I feel like there's like this specific group of people that I'm always talking to about found footage. And I've been telling a couple of them, or mentioning it and saying, hey, there's this, I just watched this. I'm getting ready to talk to the filmmaker. I think you're really going to like this movie when you get around to watching it. And so a couple of people I know for sure we're going to check it out, and we're excited about it, that I think, in general, as a found footage aficionado, I feel like it's going to be super well received. I think people are going to really like it. I think it's different. It's follows, obviously it's a found footage formula, but it's very its own, which you talked about, trying to make sure you were making it your own and you weren't going, too far into things that have already been discussed. I think it's got a great story. I think the actresses in this, especially the one that's like right in the middle of our picture, like, Jesus.
Oh, the one covered in blood, this one?
Yes.
I don't know which one I want for you, but yeah.
The one kind of in between our pictures.
Yeah.
Like
Cassandra, she's great. She was in my first movie as well after she died. Collectively, she's been in 2 films, and I've given her 2 lines of dialogue, because she also played a very minimal talking character in that first movie. She played a woman in white, she gets called in that film, and she's got a lot of prosthetic makeup on. She's a very fantastic physical performer, and I've promised her that I'll give her some more dialogue at some point. eventually.
Yeah, well, her specific thing that she's doing most of the movie was so unsettling and so effective and bothersome in a way that it's meant to be as a viewer, watching these things unfold. But no, I mean, the casting in this was great. I think their chemistry was phenomenal. I really did enjoy it. And I'm sad to say that I actually I hadn't heard of this one yet. And so when I got, when we started chatting about it and I got to see it, I was like, yeah, like I think people are going to really, really enjoy this when they get a chance to check it out.
No, thank you. Yeah, people like you and the community that you're in is the reason that these films get to sort of have a life, and they get to sort of be discovered by different people. The small films like this are very hard to get made and funded, but also sort of get seen by people in the world. So the more people that we can spread the word to and then recommend to friends, it goes so far. So thank you for saying all that and spreading the word about the movie.
Yeah. And for people watching, I can prove that I said these things not on camera with the filmmaker because I did. I messaged multiple people about watching this to put it on their found footage watch list because that's just something we're always doing is sending movies back and forth.
I'll be following up for screenshots of these tech stuff.
Hey, I've got them. I will send them. I promise. Yeah. I typically, somebody asked me recently, like, what do you do if you don't like the movie? I was like, I care enough. I will tell you this. I care enough about indie filmmakers that I can handle those conversations respectfully. But honestly, I was like, I feel like if I didn't like it, you would know, because I would just be asking very like cookie cutter talking points that I wouldn't. But no, I really did. I really, really tremendously did enjoy this. I think it's a breath of fresh air. Like I said, I just spent 30 days watching some and I was like, my God, there's some bad ones. And so it was very nice to find this and be able to get something unique. So
no, thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
No, yeah, I mean it sincerely. And I guess before we wrap up, I wanted to kind of, if there was anything you want to talk about that you've got coming down the pipeline project wise.
Yeah, so I guess we've got Puzzle Box obviously is out now on VOD. There is a little short film prequel that we've made called Puzzle Box: The Glitch that has sort of a brief festival run over this last year, and it'll be having 2 releases coming up. It'll be on our DVD and Blu-ray, which we'll have more details about soon, and then it's also going to be included in part of this anthology film that's coming out next year. That I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you the title of.
Sure, yeah,
I actually realized that I think I'm not allowed to say it. But if you follow Puzzle Box Movie, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that, which will be very exciting. So there'll be more Puzzle Box coming to you in the future. It's a very cool little short film. It's very scary. I won't spoil who's in it and what happens, but it has some wonderful ties into the feature film. And then a lot of the team and I are gearing up for this a new film that we're hoping to shoot sometime next year called Part of My Flesh, which we're all very excited about. It's not a found footage movie, so you might never watch it, but it's going to be a very fun movie as well, that one. So we've got a lot of very exciting things in the work, and excited to chat more about them when they're ready to come out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. As always, I will put the links in the description for the episode for where you can follow on socials and get or watch the movie Puzzle Box, because I do recommend it. I think for found footage people, I like I said, I've probably beaten it into the ground by now, but I do think it's going to check a lot of boxes for people. It certainly checked a lot of boxes for me. And I feel like lately I've been super hard to please in the found footage department, but I think it's just kind of a nature of the beast. There's just so much of it that, they can't all be perfect. They can't all be like super great. So
I'm curious. You said you've mentioned that you watched 30 days of found footage movies. Is that like one a day you're watching? Or are you watching like multiple? Like how many did you watch in 30 days?
Of the 31 days, because I did the whole month of October, I only missed one day. I watched one found footage movie every day, and none of them were films I had ever seen before. They were all first time watches. And I did it. Well, I try not to do stuff like that because they're really hard to commit to, because I mean, like, I work a full-time job. I'm a parent. Like it's hard to watch a movie every single day. But there is a streaming service called Found TV that just launched October 1st. And so when a friend of mine recommended, was like posting about their launch, I was like, and they were doing 31 days of found footage for their launch. I didn't do the same movies. They had it for theirs. But I was like, why not? Like, I don't watch enough of it, I feel like, and it's really cool to have this platform that's like just the subgenre that I love. And so I was like, I'm just going to do it. And so it was all first watches. And I think of the 30, because there was one day I just couldn't make it happen. So I watched 30 movies in the course of the month. And I think of the 30, I found like 6, maybe 7 new favorites, like ones that I just had never even heard of that were just really, really good. And I was starting to think that was a myth. So it was good. And a lot of them were even newer releases. Like I think 1 or 2 of them, I think even came out maybe this year, 2024. So yeah, it was exhausting. I thought I would be sick of it, but I'm not. I'm still watching stuff. Like they just released, they're now doing a Found Footage Friday release every Friday. And so I've been watching those too. So I'm not.
I gotta check out this streaming service. I've heard of it. I haven't had the chance to look at it yet, but
I highly
follow your recommendation.
Oh yeah, I highly recommend it. And I will say, I had a chance to talk to the people who made it, who run it, Louis and Monica, and they are like the nicest people you'll ever meet. And you can tell when they talk about it how much they care about the subgenre and the filmmakers. And I think when you're talking about something like a streaming service, I just don't think you really get that anymore. It's usually just like money, money, money. But I feel like they genuinely care, and they were talking about the steps they took to ensure filmmakers are making money, and it's, you know, and it's helpful for them. And anyway, I digress. But it's super good. It's a super cool streaming service. It works great on the phone or the TV. Like, highly recommend checking it out. And the people that run it are amazing. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I've gotten something out of this conversation, so I'm off to go subscribe to that channel now.
Perfect. All right, cool. Well, thanks again for coming and talking about the movie. I had a great time with it. It was really nice to talk about it too, because it was cool to hear you talk about, especially some of the filmmaking stuff was really neat. So thanks again for making the time.
No, thank you so much for having me. That was a really fun conversation. I'm glad to have been on the podcast.
Yeah, no, of course. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Filmmaking Interviews. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us on this episode. We hope you have a great rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you in the next one.